Welcome to 2022 and the beginning of the Rebel Entrepreneur Podcast Season 3. I'm so excited for what we've got in store for you coming up. The extraordinary belongs to those that create it. Rebelling against business plans and debt, rebelling against what society expects of us to build cool businesses, make money, have fun, and do good. Let's create something extraordinary together. Welcome to the Rebel Entrepreneur. So this is a special episode to start off the new year for you, and I've got lots to give you. I've got for you the annual review process that Katie and I use to think about our lives and to consciously create our future. I spend a lot of time on this podcast talking to you about the extraordinary belongs to those that create it. Well, this is more of the process that we use to build our lives each year. But before we dive into that, I have a competition for you. If you would like to win a chance to be coached individually by one of the Rebel Entrepreneur trainers, well, this is for you. You could be talking to Simon Payne, my co-founder, about mindset and business strategy. You could be talking to the lead trainer for Rebel Business School, Katie Coombs, about marketing or PR or sales and building your business. You could be talking to Henry Nicholson, who runs Rebel in the UK, all about your website or your SEO or any aspect of your business. Or you could be talking to me about your business, Marvel, or Lego. To enter the competition, all you have to do is fill out a feedback form for Season 2. I talk about feedback being the breakfast of champions and it helping you to build your business. Well, I want to continue developing the podcast for you. And to do that, I need to know what you think. I need to know what you enjoyed, what you hated, what went wrong, what went right. And interestingly, I got my first ever 1-star review on Apple Podcasts, and it was based on the JT Fox episode, which is quite amusing. I did say at the start of that episode, it could be controversial and I wanted to share different people's opinions. Turns out it was. But I want to know what you loved and what you didn't. So please go to alandonegan.com/rebel feedback to find out more about the competition and to fill out the survey and to enter. Even if you don't want to enter the competition, please fill out the survey and tell me what you loved, what you hated, what you didn't, and more information about you. Everything you give us will be completely anonymous. I just want to know how I can make this better for you. So I really appreciate you doing that. Now, let's get into the purpose of this podcast, which is to share with you the annual review process that Katie and I use. And then after that, I'm going to set up Season 3 and what we've got coming up for you. So many years ago, I read a piece, I think it was in a book by Tony Robbins, and the piece was entitled, Questions Are the Answer. And I was curious, what do you mean questions are the answer? Literally, that's the opposite. Questions are not the answer, they're the questions. But what he said was, the key piece is asking a good question. If you ask a great question, you will bring out responses, thoughts, and ideas you never would have thought of. The quality of your question determines the quality of your response. And ever since I learned that, ever since I internalized it, I've become a collector of questions. And these questions are what help me think, plan, and create the life I want to have. So when I was first thinking about this, I wanted to think through my life each year, what was going on, what was working, what wasn't. So I started Googling great questions to ask yourself, annual review questions. And I started Googling for people's questions. I asked people what questions they asked themselves. I looked for people I respected. I wrote down questions from the books I was reading. And I started to collect a document full of questions. Those questions have become the basis of my annual review process. And the reason I do this is if you don't take control of your year and plan out what you want to do, where you're heading, what your vision is, then someone else will, or circumstance will. If you don't work out what you want, well, the world will intervene and tell you what you want. So the annual review process that Katie and I go through, and actually this has spread to the Rebel Business School team. In the very early days, I got Simon, and Henry was the first person we ever employed. And the four of us would answer these questions and think about it and then come up with the answers. Then Jack joined, and it's become a yearly tradition at the Rebel Business School to send everyone the annual review questions and then to discuss them at the team retreat. And I created this sort of document that has all these questions in, and they're in sections. So the first section is what's been the best of the year and why? And it asks things like, what are you most proud of? What have you created? What did these achievements or actions make possible? What makes your heart warm just to think about it today? Then there's a section which always creates fascinating conversation for Katie and I and for the team at Rebel. What's been the toughest? What event or experience represented the worst of the year? What actions did you take that you weren't proud of? What makes you feel less than or ashamed? And there's some questions to make you think about the things that haven't gone right. And then we start to review the areas of life, which I spoke about in the Practical Self-Development episode 46 of season 2. And then it comes on to what should we build next year? What should we amplify? What outcomes or achievements do you want to build on next year? What would I do, have, or be if I had 10 million in the bank? If you had the best year ever, what would have happened? Then there's a who's been the most helpful section, a what are your top priorities section, and then I have an other interesting questions section at the end. And Katie and I create a blank page for each of us in OneNote. Use a paper book, use whatever you want. I just love OneNote, and I know my friends ridicule me for this, but I don't care. It's amazing. And within OneNote, we have the questions, and then we both journal our answers, and we write. And this could take you an hour, it could take you 3 hours, you could do it over several days, but we journal out our answers individually. And this is an important part of it because each person should have the freedom to put forward their views, their opinions, and their ideas. The second step that we go through is after journaling out our answers, we then read each other's answers and we write comments for each other and thoughts and ideas. And this really helps to get a second perspective on your inner dialogue, your words, and your thoughts. And it's incredible how this brings us together. Then, one of the most important pieces of all is we sit down and discuss it. So maybe over a dinner, maybe a chat, maybe after work, maybe during a day, we sit down in a quiet space and we go through the answers and we think about what we've written and we discuss them. We celebrate the successes. We reflect on what we want to change and we start to plan for the future. Which then brings us to the next piece, which every year I start by doing the goal-setting process that I shared in episode 46 of season 2, Practical Self-Development. I come up with 50, 75, 100 goals. Then I pick the top 4 I want to make real this year. And I focus on those things. I make a plan for the top 4 and I attack it with an energy and a vigor you won't have seen before. Because the key to creating the life you want is to think about it, question it, discuss it, come up with a plan, and then implement it. And what I wanted to do for you to help you start 2022 in the best possible way was to give you the questions and the process that Katie and I use. So I have created a blank OneNote, a blank PDF. I've put the questions in a Word document if you want to have them that way. And I've put them on my website on the latest blog article. So you can go to alandonegan.com/blog. The very latest article that will have come out just before you read this will have those questions in it. So you can download this. You can do it with the other people you work with in the company. You can do it with your family. You can do it with your friends, your partner, whoever you want to do it with. But it's such a critical step of working together to come up with a plan for the year. I keep repeating, the extraordinary belongs to those that create it. And what I would love you to do is to take time out of your busy day, of your world, to think about the future you want and think about what you want to create in the year coming. So go to alandonegan.com/blog and download those questions, find them, or just go to alandonegan.com and click on the blog. It's probably easier. And find those questions, download them and have a go. And I would love to know what comes out of that process. I'd love to know what you think about it, what worked, what didn't. So please leave us a message on the WhatsApp and tell us, leave us an audio message, tell us, because I'd love to include those in an episode about the annual review process for next year. I really would. So please leave us a message. You can find the link to the WhatsApp on alandonegan.com/podcast. Just click on there, send us a voice message. We would really appreciate it. Next up, let's talk about season 3, which starts properly on Monday. I am super excited about this. The first episode is an emotional one. Christy and Bryce from Millennial Revolution filled out the form saying they wanted to take over the podcast and they wanted to find out about my origin story. So I strapped myself in and they asked me all of the questions they've been dying to know about where did Rebel Business School come from? Why do I do what I do? How does this all work? So if you've ever wondered where this startup methodology came from, why we have the drive to do what we do and keep doing the podcast, then I think this is going to be an interesting episode for you. I think you're going to love it. Then we move on to episode 2, and Simon and I are going to set out the Rebel Startup Method. So we're going to take you through all of the steps we have to growing a business right from the very start. So choosing an idea, coming up with an idea, working out what to do, running mini experiments, deciding if the mini experiment is worth following, when to throw all in, when to grow your business, and all of the steps all the way through. And that should give you a fabulous overview of the process we used to build businesses, and we've taught to tens of thousands around the world. And the reason for doing this is I think it will set the context for everything we're going to talk about in season 3. And season 3 is our takeover season. So you've got a range of episodes coming up. We had, I think, 15 people come forwards and say they wanted to take over the podcast and ask me questions, which I was very excited about. And what I found fascinating was everyone asked different questions. There was every step in the entrepreneurial journey. And that's what we're going to use as the structure of the entire season. So we're going to start with the pre-startup bits. And actually, this is not just pre-startup, because you might have an existing business, but you're thinking about launching a new product, changing direction, launching a new service, doing a different thing. This is exactly what you would have to go through no matter where you are. It's exactly what we go through, even 10 years into our business when we're thinking about a new product. This is what we go through. Where do the ideas come from? How do you choose an idea and then getting to launch? And we had some incredible questions from you about that subject. Then we're going to go on to startup. How do you actually get going? How do you make it real? Running mini experiments. Then moving on to selecting which one to run, growing your business, starting to make money. And then I'm planning a series on social media marketing, because I think that's something that's been missing from what we've done so far. And it's actually such an incredibly valuable tool for you to be able to find customers. So I'm planning a series on the major platforms, how to use them to create sales. And the entire focus will be, how do I use these platforms to create sales for my business? So not just getting followers for followers' sake, because who cares, but how do I actually engage and grow my business? Then we're going to move on to a slightly different section of season 3, which is about moving on to how do you stop being an employee and how do you change to be a business owner? And then finally, we had 3 episodes where people took over the show and really wanted to grill me on my money philosophy and financial independence. And I've come to realize over the coaching series with Andrew Alinda and some of the other chats I've been having, there is magic in entrepreneurship combined with financial independence. So we're going to explore my money philosophy. One of the people came forward on the show. I don't know if you remember Jamie Dillon from the coaching season 2. She came forward and says, is financial independence still possible after 40? So we have that. And then we've got a little bit about financial independence at the end. Because I think if you can combine those two things, there's so much for you in the future. It's going to be a mega season. I'm so excited to share this with you. It's going to be so much fun. And what I would really love you to do is to take the annual review questions, have a go at answering them, thinking them through, and start designing your life. Because if you don't take charge of your life, then circumstance, situation, the companies you work for, your family will take over designing your life, and your life won't go in the direction you were expecting it to. So have a go at the questions, have a go, and then let us know what you think. Thank you for listening to the Rebel Entrepreneur Podcast. Happy New Year, and here's to building an extraordinary life for you. You can have any life you want to. Choose to build something cool. Choose to take action. Choose to work to make your dreams become reality. Stand out. Be different. Be yourself. Be a rebel entrepreneur.